When Nneka made the difficult decision to leave Ebuka in the care of Mama Ijeoma, she knew it was the only way to secure a better future for them both. The journey back to school was not easy. She arrived with only a small bundle of clothes, a few books, and her fierce determination. The other students, unaware of her struggles, whispered behind her back. They knew she had been expelled before and now returned as a young mother, a label that often carried shame and judgment. Nneka ignored the stares and whispers. She wasn't here for them, she was here for Ebuka. Every day she reminded herself of his little face, his bright eyes, and the future she wanted to build for him. That was her motivation, her anchor in the storm. The workload was intense. Nneka's school hours were long, but she had to work harder than her peers because she had missed an entire year. After classes, while other students went home to rest or relax with friends, Nneka would spend hours in the library, poring over textbooks and taking meticulous notes. Her hand often cramped from writing, but she pushed through the pain, knowing that each page she studied was a step closer to giving Ebuka the life he deserved. Money was still a constant worry. Though she was no longer hawking oranges in the streets, she needed to find a way to support herself through school. She took on odd jobs whenever she could. She worked as a cleaner at a nearby hotel, washing floors and scrubbing toilets in the early hours of the morning before heading to school. On weekends, she helped out in a local restaurant, washing dishes and peeling vegetables until her fingers were sore. There were times when exhaustion gripped her so tightly she felt like collapsing. But she didn't. She couldn't afford to. One night, after a particularly grueling day of cleaning and studying, Nneka collapsed into her small bed in the cramped room she rented. The light from the single bulb flickered as she stared at the ceiling, her body aching. Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She couldn't allow herself to break down. Not now. Not when she was so close. She whispered a prayer, asking God for strength, then pulled out her books to study for an upcoming exam. Her body screamed for rest, but her mind, driven by her love for Ebuka, forced her to stay awake. Her grades started to reflect her hard work. Slowly but surely, Nneka rose to the top of her class. Teachers began to take notice of her, marveling at her intelligence and dedication. But even as her academic achievements grew, her sacrifices continued. She wore the same pair of shoes until the soles were worn through. She often skipped meals to save money, her stomach growling in protest as she focused on her studies. Yet, no matter how hard things got, she never let herself give up. One night, as she stayed late at school, working on a research paper, her phone buzzed. It was a picture from Mama Ijeoma, Ebuka, now 2 years old, smiling brightly, his small face filled with joy as he played with the other children in the village. Nneka stared at the photo, her heart swelling with both love and sorrow. She missed him terribly, but seeing him happy and healthy reminded her why she was making all these sacrifices. "I'll be with you soon, my son," she whispered, tears running down her cheeks. Soon. Finally, the day of her final exams arrived. Nneka had barely slept the night before, staying up to review every possible question that might come her way. As she walked into the examination hall, her heart pounded in her chest. She clutched the small charm Mama Ijeoma had given her when she left the village, a small carved figure meant to bring strength and protection. She whispered a quick prayer, then sat down, determined to give it her all. The exams were grueling, but Nneka stayed focused. She wrote furiously, answering each question with confidence. By the time she handed in her paper, her hands were shaking, but there was a calm in her heart. She knew she had done her best. Weeks later, the results were posted. Nneka stood in front of the board, her eyes scanning the list of names. When she found her own, she saw it. She had graduated at the top of her class. A wave of emotion crashed over her, and she covered her mouth to hold back the sobs of relief and joy. All the sleepless nights, the hunger, the exhaustion, it had all been worth it. She had made it. After graduation, Nneka moved to the city, where she was lucky to find a job as an administrative assistant at a law firm. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was steady work, and for the first time in years, she had a regular income. She lived frugally, saving every naira she could. Her room in the city was small, barely enough for one person, but she didn't care. Every month, she sent money back to Mama Ijeoma to support Ebuka. She made sure he had clothes, food, and everything else a child his age would need. Life in the city was a challenge of its own. Nneka had to navigate the fast-paced, often unforgiving world of office work. Her colleagues were much more experienced, and she had to learn quickly. But Nneka approached the job the same way she approached everything else in life, with hard work and determination. She took on extra tasks, stayed late to learn new skills, and slowly but surely, gained the respect of her bosses. Yet, despite her progress, there wasn't a single day that passed without her thinking about Ebuka. The first time she received her salary, she held the crisp bills in her hand and felt a rush of pride. She had worked so hard to reach this point, but this was just the beginning. For 2 years, Nneka worked diligently, her mind always on her son. Each time she saved a bit more, she felt a step closer to bringing Ebuka to the city with her. Finally, after 2 long years of sacrifice, Nneka had saved enough money. The day she packed her bags to return to the village, her heart raced with excitement and fear. Would Ebuka remember her? Would he still recognize his mother after all this time? The journey back to Umuchu felt both long and short. As the bus neared the village, Nneka's palms grew sweaty with anticipation. She hadn't seen Ebuka since he was a baby. Now he was a toddler, full of life and energy, and Nneka had missed so many of his first steps, his first words. But she had done it all for him, and now she was finally coming back for him. When she stepped off the bus and walked down the familiar dusty road to Mama Ijeoma's house, her heart pounded in her chest. As she reached the front door, her hands shook. She could hear the children playing in the yard, and among them, a voice she hadn't heard in so long. "Mama! Mama!" came the excited shout. Nneka turned to see a little boy running toward her, his arms outstretched. Tears welled up in Nneka's eyes as she knelt down and caught him in her arms. "Ebuka," she whispered, holding him tightly. "I've missed you, my son." Ebuka clung to her, laughing, his small hands gripping her clothes as though he had been waiting for this moment forever. "Mama," he repeated, his face lighting up with joy. Mama Ijeoma stood in the doorway, smiling gently. "He's been waiting for you, Nneka. He's a strong boy, just like his mother."